Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. Mike Beets and Tony Beets, the stars of the well-known television program Gold Rush, are renowned for their exaggerated personalities and their audacious exploits in the gold mining industry. The show's fans followed their trek across difficult terrain, mining, difficulties, as well as the drama that came with attempting to get wealthy in the harsh wilderness. Their existence appeared to be a thrilling, daring narrative playing out on screen, an illustration of the American dream. They constructed their identity, their company, and their reputation built on perseverance, hard effort, and a readiness to take chances. However, everything was altered when there was news. Mike Beets and Tony Beets were given a life sentence in jail. This twist, even if it was unexpected terrible, caught everyone off guard. The Beets clan, which had evolved interchangeable with gold mining on suddenly, TV found itself at the center of a real scandal in life. What went wrong? And what happened to these two men who were respected for their tenacity? They wind up in this terrible circumstance. Many people found it is hard to accept that supporters who had praised them on TV and now located themselves, doubting everything. They believed they were aware of the Beets family. The abrupt change in circumstances left a path of perplexity, incredulity, and most importantly, interest. The declaration was made following a fierce court case. The examination found a number of incidents that presented a far more bleak than anyone had anticipated. Information regarding the case was meticulously concealed, which heightens the mystery encompassing the whole circumstance. Stay tuned as we explore Tony and Mike's adventure. What they did to get them into this circumstance, if they were engaged in legal pursuits, or if there was a greater intricate chain of events that resulted in their demise. In 1959, Tony Beets was born in the tiny community of Wajdenis, which is situated in the Netherlands. In 1980, he bravely moved to Canada at the age of 21, holding only a few things and hope. He had money in his pocket. At first, he moved to Alberta and started working there, on a dairy farm, in order to earn a living. Living was difficult, but Tony was accustomed to laborious. But it didn't take very long. Wanted him to understand that farming, even though honest, work, with little financial reward prospects. Attracted to tales of good fortune and motivated by his unwavering work ethic, he turned his attention to mining. The harsh environment and alone, the Klondike region's remoteness in the territory in the Yukon, would have deterred a lot, but not Tony. He didn't see barriers, but chances. Tony Beets in the Yukon mined for more than simply gold. He carved out a heritage. The rugged landscape and harsh, the weather served as the backdrop for his ascent in the field of gold mining. By way of tenacity and fortitude, he not only struck gold, but also learnt about his genuine enthusiasm. It was more than simply a job to mine. It was his lifestyle, transforming him into one of the most well-known and prosperous individuals within the sector. Tony Beets did more than simply, in the Yukon, achieve success. He constructed an empire from the ground up in gold mining. Beginning with nearly nothing, Tony transformed his humble origins into a mining dynasty run by a family that united of the most well-known activities in the Klondike. Minnie Beets, his wife, performed a vital part from the start, taking care of the books, managing the money, and maintaining the commercial aspect of things in sequence, as Tony concentrated on field operations. As the company grew, Kelvin, the Beets kids, Mike and Monica, came next in their father's path. Instead of seeking employment elsewhere, they joined the family business, understanding how big machinery, worth several $1 million. With Tony's help, they discovered the commerce by doing it the hard way, themselves, frequently in harsh conditions and difficult circumstances. Tony soon acquired a repute for more than only his deep digging expertise and unwavering diligence, but especially for his straightforward demeanor and larger-than-life disposition, his unusual techniques, a fierce temper, and his renownedly vibrant language set him separate from other miners. He gained notoriety for pushing his team and yelling commands, family members, to their extent, frequently interspersed with his now iconic, "the" slogan, "Shut up and keep mining." This unadulterated genuineness hit a chord with the popular reality show's Fans Gold Rush, where Tony developed a fondness for Favourite, his refusal to sugarcoat the truth, and his obvious resolve to prevail against the odds. When Gold Rush's Tony Beets joined, he wasn't a rookie in Season 2. He had decades of mining experience already beneath his belt. Having been employed in the sector for many years, Tony introduced a degree of knowledge that a lot of the other miners had nothing. Although a lot of his peers hunted for gold in the hostile, the Klondike's conditions, Tony's operation continuously performed better than the competition, producing remarkable gold sums from year to year. His background: having a calculated approach to mining made it possible for where others failed, he flourished. Tony made a daring move in Season 5 that would firmly establish him as one of the most aspirational Klondike miners. The vintage dredge was bought by him at Eureka Creek at an outrageous $1 million. It was a huge risk, one that many detractors believed would result in catastrophe. However, Tony identified opportunities where others perceived danger. He spilt money into fixing up the fabled dredge, enormous, antiquated mining apparatus. In spite of everything Tony made, it's profitable, disproving his detractors and making the dredge a prosperous enterprise that aided in expanding his business. With the expansion of the gold rush, producers soon discovered that Tony Beets and his family played a crucial element of the popularity of the show. The drama among the Beets family, in addition to Tony's extravagant personality, formed a key component of the program's achievement. The Beets family, frequently known as the Vikings in the Klondike, contributed a special vitality to the show, and their plots developed into some of the most captivating for the audience. It was more than simply gold. It concerned the resiliency and dynamic connections, and their the quest for achievement. Beyond gold, Tony discovered something even more worthwhile in the wildness of the Yukon, a location to demonstrate his sincerity and resolve. His voyage demonstrated that, with diligence, prudent risk-taking, and some dirt, it was feasible to transform even the most improbable endeavors into prosperous companies. Achievement in the, although Klondike wasn't assured, Tony, it was the prize for decades of Beets' tenacity and unrelenting pursuit of his objectives. As time went on, the Beets family established a mining conglomerate that expanded consistently in front of viewers of television. As people watched, they saw the growing power of the family in the gold mining sector, placing additional claims and increasing in size activities. At the heart of this expansion was experienced miner Tony Beets, whose tough leadership approach brought him a standing in the industry and on screen. Beside him, working closely, was Mike Beets, his son. From an early age, Mike spent a lot of time in the realm of mining, progressively taking over his father's dependable right-hand man. He discovered all aspects of the company, from running heavy equipment for workforce management logistics, exhibiting excellent work moral and innate leadership. It appeared it was inevitable that Mike would eventually inherit Paradise, the family business hill, carrying on Tony's legacy constructed. But their father-son, there was friction in the connection. Despite their close relationship, they frequently put to the test by the mining precious company. Angry disputes and yelling matches were prevalent, especially amid challenging mining seasons. In spite of there remained respect between them despite these conflicts. Between them, and Tony progressively trusted Mike with more important obligations, preparing him to ultimately assume control of the Beets mining activity. However, behind the scenes, the narrative became more sinister. 2019 federal investigators started looking into the Beets family company following environmental grievances emerged, particularly transgressions involving inappropriate disposal of wastewater. What started as routine examinations quickly developed into a more extensive inquiry. According to reports, authorities discovered disparities in the business's documentation, containing questionable discrepancies in how the production of gold was reported. There have been allegations that the Tony's family's transfer of authority accompanied Mike by more than only the sharing of mining expertise. Investigators asserted that unlawful procedures that might have been incorporated into the company over many years, combining illegal activity with another legal mining activities. As the inquiry revealed, it was evident that the family's ascent to prominence in the mining industry, perhaps industry, was accompanied by illegal actions that had turned into intricately linked to the daily activities of the company over several decades. The complexity of the law and criminal justice, the Beets empire's surroundings added a dark side to the narrative, overpowering what had at first seemed to be a simple story of family achievement in the mining sector. As stated by court records, the inquiry into the mining operation of the Beets family increased dramatically when the former workers presented explosives claims pertaining to illicit mining activities and widespread tax evasion. One of the most important statements was made by mining inspector John Reeves, who demonstrated that environmental sample extracted from the ponds of tailings on the Beets allegations that there were dangerous substances such as mercury and cyanide. These drugs are strictly prohibited in contemporary gold mining because of the serious hazards to the environment and human health they present, like groundwater pollution and long-term harm to regional ecosystems. According to Reeves's evidence, these chemicals were purposefully employed to increase the rates of gold recovery, particularly in the early morning hours when there were no television crews present and off-site. According to the prosecution, these unauthorized actions were purposefully hidden to preserve and maintain a positive public image while optimizing earnings. The most incriminating proof arrived from former mechanic Brian Anderson, whom the Beets family had collaborated with for 8 seasons. Anderson collaborated with detectives and supplied a covert camera video showcasing Mike Beets and Tony in conversations with Venezuelan buyers regarding gold transactions that were never submitted to the tax authorities. This video, as per prosecutors, disclosed that there was organized money laundering activity. The plan was to sell removing gold from the books to evade taxes and worldwide examination. Monetary specialists, the prosecution brought in, stated in court that over $15 million unreported gold sales occurred between 2012 and 2002, namely at the height of the fame of the Beets family on the discovery gold rush in the Channel. Additionally, research revealed a second group of Tony's concealed financial records Beets workplace. These records claimed to have displayed the real gold recovery figures that were much greater than what was portrayed in the TV program or declared to the tax authorities. Increasing the legitimacy regarding these allegations, a former crew member, according to Peter Lewis's testimony, a lot of what viewers witnessed on Gold Rush was a significantly modified edition of a very bigger, more covert activity. Lewis remembered that Tony often said to his group, "What occurs after the cameras depart and remain between us," suggesting a purposeful attempt to conceal specific actions from the film crew, as well as the regulatory organizations. In a courtroom with strong visibility legal team for the Beets family, headed by a well-known defense lawyer, Samantha Wright launched an aggressive defense against the grave accusations, with tax evasion, environmental violations, and illegal sales of gold. Wright rejected the witnesses for the prosecution as unhappy former workers with personal grudges, implying that they were more inspired to testify by bitterness rather than reality. Wright heartily supported Tony Beets' image, depicting him as a tough-driving but eventually legal and entrepreneur who constructed a mining empire after decades of unrelenting labor, not illegal activity. This man dedicated his whole life into establishing a company. Wright said, the jury, the Beets, she stressed, family had been under constant observation of the general public for more than 10 years, becoming well-known through their appearances on the well-known television Gold Rush television series. These are televisions, Wright, stars, not criminal masterminds, stated. Why would somebody engage in unlawful behavior, operations, whereas national cameras are rolling? But prosecutors presented a radically different image. They quarreled that the Beets' notoriety didn't stop them, but a tactical advantage, a perfect smokescreen. By displaying a regulated, cleaned-up version of their activities on television, the family allegedly took focus away from a lot of more extensive and covert off-camera mining business. The prosecution argued that although viewers witnessed staged mining for amusement, the actual concern was making millions of dollars in undeclared revenue and creating environmental damage that cannot be undone damage. Following 6 weeks of fervent testimony, in addition to more than a dozen witnesses, the jury only took 3 days to come to a unanimous decision. I'm guilty of everything. Among the charges were conspiracy to commit environmental infractions, tax fraud, and running an unauthorized gold trading business network. At sentence, the judge, according to Rebecca Holloway, she will not be forgiving of the accused. She characterized their crimes as a heinous breach of public confidence and a direct danger to the delicate ecosystem of the Yukon. She referenced testimony from experts that showed that the usage of prohibited substances like, since cyanide and mercury, had already taken the lead to persistent pollution of groundwater that might continue for generations. When presented with the opportunity, Tony Beets continued to address the court. Defiant. I constructed everything from nothing, he said. You are welcome to steal my liberty, but you're unable to accept what I produced. Mike Beets, his son, came more sentimental and quiet. He informed the court that he had just adhered to his directions from the father, a defense that the Judge Holloway brushed it off as practical, but finally not exonerating. The final decision was shocking. Even knowledgeable legal observers, living both Tony and Mike, will be imprisoned rhythms. Legal experts pointed out that such a sentence is quite uncommon for financial offences, although the prosecution effectively contended that the extent of the damage to the ecosystem was justified, the most severe punishment conceivable. Observing life and the dramatic guilty verdict penalties imposed on Mike and Tony, Judge Rebecca Holloway delivered Beets a final caustic statement. The chase, she asserted that gold is not worth contaminating the water and land for centuries to come. Her words reverberated, both within and outside of the courtroom, expressing the seriousness of the legal and environmental repercussions of the situation. Notification of the sentence was sent shock waves that go through the mining industry as well as the entertainment sector. The Beets family had taken up residence' names because to their lengthy appearance on the Gold Discovery Channel's Rush, a program that depicted the difficulties and achievements of placer gold Yukon mining. Using the Beets' decline, the show's legitimacy and the public perception of the industry emerged under close examination. As a reaction, the Discovery Channel promptly released an official declaration to disassociate itself from the dispute. We're astonished and extremely dissatisfied with them disclosures. Discovery was never conscious of any illicit activity occurring at the Gold Rush showcased mining enterprises. These accusations are taken seriously by us and are reconsidering our mistake. Protocols in motion ahead. The production firm for the show, additionally, Raw Television, replied, declaring an urgent and important modifications to the series. Every single thing that exists, episodes with the Beets family would not be available on streaming platforms, and future installments would discuss the criminal case directly. The Gold Rush's future, although not cancelled, would proceed under more stringent production guidelines and with an updated concentrate on openness. Mining Reveals co-stars additionally responded to the news with incredulity. Schnobel, Parker, who had a competitive and occasionally hostile on-screen connection with Tony Beets, released a statement saying, "Tony was always fierce and unyielding, but I never suspected criminal activity. This alters my perspective on everything that transpired in various times of year." Another is Rick, Ness. Longtime cast member and miner, was clearly shook when confronted by reporters. "I'm unable to speak. I never saw. This is coming." In spite of the terrible decision, the Beets legal team took action swiftly to submit appeals, pointing out what they referred to as many procedural mistakes made throughout the trial, such as the acceptance of secret recordings and how expert testimony is handled. Nonetheless, legal experts pointed out that the scope and significance of the evidence make it is improbable that the appeal will be successful. As a single, according to an expert, reversing Such a complete conviction is a lawful uphill struggle. Meanwhile, both Mike Beets and Tony Beets were moved to distinct correctional maximum security establishments where people await the results of their pleas. The case is still ongoing, impacts several industries, providing as a warning story regarding the high expenses associated with environmental crime and the possible drawbacks of combining celebrity with company. Mike Beets and Tony Beets were found guilty and given a life sentence in incarceration for a number of ecological and financial offences connected to their gold mining enterprise. Not all relatives were connected. The wife of Tony, Minnie Beets, and seasoned business associate, wasn't accused in the matter and has persisted in remaining steadfast by her husband's side. In uncommon and passionate public declaration, Minnie defended the case outside the courthouse. Tony's legacy and character. We have been 40 years together. This man is someone I know. He worked hard to build what we own. Labor, not by committing crimes. The reality will come on out. Their kids, Kevin and Monica Beets, who had both performed duties in the mining company, run by the family and frequently made appearances on Gold Rush, stayed mostly silent during the proceedings. By contrast, neither faced accusations. Both were observed at judicial proceedings throughout the trial. Later, prosecutors verified that Kevin and Monica provided investigators with cooperation in return for protection, even while the degree of their participation or expertise. None of the unlawful actions were made, the general public. In the meantime, the effects of the Beets family's decline is spreading outside. The mining at Paradise Hill operation, which was formerly worth millions and seen as a turning point in the Gold Rush series, which the Canadian government has confiscated, the government. Remediation of the environment efforts are already in progress, and preliminary assessment reports make an estimate of the cleanup will cost more than $20 million to taxpayers and might take a few decades to finish. Among the most emblematic defeats, in the following the controversy, the dismantling of the rebuilt dredge owned by Tony Beets, enormous piece of mining machinery that had previously been the focal point of the display. Mercury was found in tests, pollution all over its structure, identifying it as a dangerous substance, a contraption that was formerly thought to be a tribute to. The history of Klondike mining has now been denounced as poisonous garbage. In Dawson City, and local community responses have been a mixture. A few locals recognize that the Beets family garnered attention from around the world and travel to the area as a result of their visibility on TV. However, some claim the indications of careless conduct have been seen for many years. He always took action, in his own manner, said veteran Klondike young James Wilson. However, no one gave it any thought. That required violating the law in this regard level. Regarding reality TV industry, the case represents an extraordinary turning point. Although there has been some reality TV disputes from behind-the-scenes manipulation to scandals off-screen, never before have the main characters in a popular series were charged with this size. Media analysts state networks will have to put into practice more stringent monitoring and screening procedures for upcoming reality series. Raw Television and Discovery Channel, the Gold Rush producing business, have already declared significant modifications to how the program is broadcast and produced. As Mike Beets and Tony will start a new life behind jail, still a lot of questions not responded to. What will become of the surviving mining claims of the family and apparatus? Will the other members of the family go back to mining, or possesses the Beets end of legacy, and possibly the majority of particularly how one of the biggest in gold mining, well-known families go from TV celebrity to criminal convictions? Although the criminal trial of after Tony and Mike Beets finished, the legal drama is far from finished. The prosecution have verified that an independent civil. The process is under progress to ascertain the remaining Beets family members' fate resources. This stage will concentrate on the monetary and ecological consequences of the family's lengthy mining activity. Legal professionals advise that a significant amount of the Beets assets, such as mining machinery, real estate, as well as any leftover earnings from their appearances on television, will probably be confiscated and disposed of. The revenue is anticipated to assist in covering the $20 million is anticipated to be spent on environmental expenditures associated with Paradise Hill's cleanup site, as well as other impacted regions. Cleaning up efforts could take decades, particularly considering the existence of harmful substances such as cyanide and mercury present in the water and soil. Regarding the finding channel, the convictions for crimes constitute a serious and extraordinary strike against one of its most prosperous and recognizable franchises. Gold Rush has been broadcast continuously ranked as one since 2010 of the best performing reality show on the network series featuring the Beets family as a crucial part of its allure. The work of Tony Beets' persona that is larger than life, no-nonsense mindset, as well as non-traditional mining style was a big attraction for viewers. In following the controversy, Discovery has declared its plan to keep Gold Hurry, turning attention to what's left mining teams, one of whom is Parker Schnoblier's, well as Rick Ness. But industry insiders have voiced doubts regarding the show's potential to continue without the Beets, family members who caused turmoil, conflict, as well as a multi-generational the series story. The Beets were, although divisive, they were also ratings gold. According to one television commentator, in their absence, Gold Rush will have to reimagine it or risk losing its essence, viewers. As the show's producing firm, Raw Television has pledged to boost compliance and transparency going ahead. Subsequent episodes will allegedly consist of behind-the-scenes disclosures and deal with the consequences of the Beets lawsuit, in real life and on-screen life, as the civil trial draws near, and long-term environmental teams start Paradise Hill cleaning, the future of the history of the Beets and the brand that helped establish their notoriety. Not sure. The courtroom was empty as the verdict's weight settled in. Those who were familiar with the Gold Rush were seen coming out with sorrowful hearts. Among Chris Jumit, the popular favorite, was one of them. Gold room operator and former carpenter who'd collaborated with several mining teams over time and gained recognition throughout the board for his unassuming commitment and artistry. Reporters approached Jumit, spoke up outside the courts to the solemn tone that many people in the community during the Gold Rush. It's a depressing day for all parties concerned. Here, no one wins. There is damage to the land. Individuals have demolished. When a shadow has been overshadowed a sector that was full of diligent and truthful individuals who do things correctly manner. Within the judicial chamber, the Beets trial's pivotal moments, with an odd combination of drama and resignation, in their capacity as correctional officers, went to Mike Beets and Tony to take them into detention. The environment was dense and silent. Cameras swung, quickly, catching what seemed to be the final period of a dynasty. Then, shortly before being escorted, outside the once the larger-than-life, Elder Beets, the Klondike's Viking, broke his quiet. Looking out into the crowded courtroom, where reporters were present, past members of the crew, and long-time viewers, he provided a succinct and solemn goodbye. The Viking is no longer there. After saying those remarks, he was led through the windows that would keep him away from the empire that he had built over decades. His heritage, his claim, and his dredges he once showed millions of people with pride. For Gold Rush enthusiasts, the occasion was a pivotal moment. What were seen's oftenacious tenacity and success, family camp meals, loud equipment, and golden. These days, cleanouts have a greater enigmatic and disturbing tone. Episodes that once celebrated achievement now feels in the shadow of dishonesty, environmental injury, and treachery. The belief demands an accounting not just for the surpasses family, but for a devoted audience. Now, one must wonder how much of what they observed mirrored on the screen reality and what was meticulously hidden behind the lens. Environmental organizations have begun utilizing the Gold's clip sherry, along with the Beets proof effort, to explain the reasons of strong mining laws are significant. These resources are intended to illustrate the potential harm when regulations are disregarded. The matter has also posed challenging queries regarding reality television. Some are inquiring as to whether TV producers must take greater accountability for ensuring that what they shoot and make from is being carried out lawfully and morally. As a result, a number of TV now, Bosses are demanding new regulations throughout the SE